Hello and welcome to the last word on Spurs. We are, of course, your multi-award winning Tottenham Hotspur podcast. It feels like a massive, massive evening for listeners and audio on what I feel many will feel is probably Tottenham Hotspur's biggest ever Premier League game. Because the last 24 hours in the footballing sphere, the Premier League sphere, have quite frankly taken a turn for the worst. And look, depending on what side of the coin you are on, there'll be some that are, majority probably, very, very nervous around Tottenham about our position in the Premier League and whether we can retain our Premier League status. I never, ever, ever thought I would have said on Last One on Spurs, and bearing in mind we've been going on this show for the last 7-8 years, a massive, massive night in store at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, where I think we'll be discussing a lot during the show, but the support needs to be there for the team in what's going to be a nervy, nervy game. We're joined by three fabulous returning regular guests to Last One on Spurs who had to rip up part of the script and retry a different formula, but it's Tottenham, and these wonderful gentlemen are used to that. I'm joined by, on this show, TJ Ramini's back in the house, George Achillea is in the house, Patrick Tyrant is back after a while away. Pat, lovely to have you back alongside us here, mate. Welcome back to the family. Let's bring in just the crux of where we are going into a massive, massive game against Crystal Palace at home for Tottenham in the Premier League, where, look, I don't want to exaggerate that point. Before we do, guys, if you can for us out there, like, hype, subscribe to the show. That will be greatly appreciated as always. Thank you ever so much for all your incredible support for this show. Tonight is the biggest Premier League game of the club's history, in my opinion. We'll get the chaps' thoughts on it as well, given the fact that West Ham United and Nottingham Forest go within a point of Tottenham, who at the moment sit 16th in the Premier League table. A Spurs win versus Palace tonight will take them 4 points clear and leapfrog Leeds into 15th. It's a massive, massive game for Tottenham Hotspur Football Club. And it's where we do need our genuine players to show up as soldiers. Yes, the squad's been decimated. Yes, there are concerns about Igor Tudor. But we're at a point in Spurs' history where it's defining. Let's bring you in, if I can, George, to start with, mate. You've been a part of this journey with me really from the start, the last 7-8 years. I know we all probably can't believe the plight of where this football club has gone to and where it may even end up, which scares me saying that. I got shudders through my body even thinking about what next season maybe looks like. How concerned are you, George, by the imminent threat of relegation? So I never thought I'd ever ask you on Last One on Spurs, but I have to also say it is a reality that we're having this conversation, George.
Yeah, look, I've been worried for a long time, as you know, when I've been on these shows the last few weeks. I think even from December, to be honest, not necessarily for relegation, but I'm worried for the state the team was heading in the longer we kept Frank in. We've left it too late. And in fact, I'm literally just looking at an image now that I can see where on New Year's Day, I believe it is, we were 12th. And we were 12 points clear of those in relegation. And now look, now that's gone down to 1. And I think the trajectory you can see is just almost a spineless, gutless team in some games. Sometimes even if some players do have a fight in them, it's not enough. And you're seeing the teams around us now starting to pick up points, especially in, well, what's supposed to be tough games, what we were told were tough games, like Fulham away. Yet somehow West Ham have managed to go there today and get a massive 3 points for them. So, no, I am very concerned because I know that we've got Liverpool away around the corner. That's always a tough game for us that we seem to never be able to win. And I know tomorrow was important, but I think it's just become even more so against Palace because look, they're in a dire situation, and it's going to sound silly to be honest with you because it's obvious, but I'd rather be above 3 teams than 2 going into this fight with Liverpool around the corner. And if we can get that win and somehow fluke it like we did in the away leg, because let's if people remember rightly, we were terrible against Palace in my opinion in that away leg back in December. Yet we somehow managed to grind a win out of that, and I think we just need to do the same, to be honest with you, because it could easily get very toxic if we lose, or even draws not really enough. But at this point, you take anything you can get. But yeah, if it goes south again against Palace, I think it's going to be a dangerous situation for Spurs. You then got Champions League midweek, followed by Liverpool away.
Yeah.
And in that time, who knows? Forest, West Ham, whatever they could get. I know West Ham have City, but Forest could get a result against Fulham, and then all of a sudden we are in danger with no escape route. So yeah, it's fair to say I'm a bit annoyed at the situation we're in and very worried. So yeah.
You're allowed to be annoyed, G. You're allowed to be even stronger than annoyed. I think the negligence shown by the hierarchy has been quite frankly unbearable, intolerable, unacceptable. And I know at a time where really now what you want to do is try and rally the troops and put to one side differences, frustration, anger. Everybody has the right to feel the way they feel. And the one thing that I'm really passionate about is, for me personally, the last people, in my opinion, that should be blamed is our supporters. That's just my opinion. I think our supporters have gone through so much in this last, 4, 5, 6 years, probably since the Pochettino sacking. We've gone round in circles. There's been a lack of decision-making that's cost us on so many multiple occasions. And this season, when I've always said this about Tottenham fans, we're not stupid. We've got a learned bunch, like TJ alludes to on this show, that saw the... if we're going to be honest about it, the drop in the form under Thomas Frank, and that was alarming. And it felt there were points in the season way before he could have been sacked and should have been sacked where you were looking and thinking, if we don't act, we can see this coming. And it feels only really, if I bring you in, Tej, it's in the last only, I'd say 2 weeks or so, the national media have only really picked up in the last fortnight or so. They've actually realised, Tottenham relegation battle, but being part of the show, we've been saying on it for months, and it's not something we're proud to say. It's not something we're sensationalizing, but our eyes don't deceive us. The stats don't lie to us. We've been seeing this on the pitch for months, and I think the biggest concern right now is it feels that maybe it is just a Tottenham feeling, because again, we all love and support this club so dearly, that the world, the footballing gods seem against us, and everybody seems conspiring against us, whether that's PGML, VAR, even the Premier League in general, Arsenal supporting scouts being installed into the football club, our own board. Is there an element of it being an inside job? Teach, just summarise your thoughts for me in terms of how big this game is against Crystal Palace this evening, because this feels meteoric in terms of a Premier League game on the horizon for Tottenham. I can't remember another game as big as this in the Premier League, probably since we were going for the title, which tells you how far we've dropped.
Yeah, I mean, firstly, thank you to the viewers and the listeners for joining us as ever. We do feel a weight of responsibility to represent you honestly and sincerely, and to provide solace and comfort where we can. It's going to be very difficult this evening. I do have some positives that I'm going to speak about later. They're slightly esoteric in nature because, unfortunately, the literal situation that we're in is beyond doubt, refute, or reason. I do believe that this is the culmination of at least a decade of neglect. Before we were coming onto the show, we were talking about how many things in life, whether they're in business or whether they're in politics, they happen gradually. This downturn in not only performance, but really reflection of who we are. I've spent, I think, quite a lot of the time that I've been on the show recently speaking about not only identity, but the legacy and history of this club, which when I look at how certain things are occurring, and the last time I was on on the show, and I was talking about that. I was talking about, I am sure I would bet money, I would bet my home that there are people at the club who have no idea what the legacy or the history of this football club. People throw around terms like Big Six. Well, why? Well, why are we a Big Six club? And they go, oh, well, did you know that this team, and I'm not going to list them all again, I did them last time. And again, like you said, Rick, I have great faith in the viewers and the listeners, not only of this podcast, but the supporters of this football club around the world. We know our history, we know our legacy, we know how important we are, absolutely pivotal. One of the most illustrious teams in England. And so understanding that from every level of the club is fundamentally important, especially at a time like this. So that has been ignored and neglected by the people that run the football club. And that has permeated into every single level. So this chap that got hired to be a scout, now I was incensed by that. Not about him personally. He looks like a young man. Young people make mistakes. Where a lot of my irritation arose from this is that he was employed by a company and there was obviously no kind of media trade. When I go to set on, and I'll be back there tomorrow. Actually, I won't be able to watch the game. I'll be working. But the first thing you do when you walk through the door is you sign an NDA. When they sign their contract, they send their contracts to me. I sign an NDA, right? When I'm in the set, there are literally postings all over the place about what you can and cannot post to social media. They might go, oh, TJ, would you put out a thing to promote this game at this time, or promote this character, or promote this film, or promote this TV show at this time? And I go, yes, you can post this, but you can't post that. So there were some people who were saying, oh, it's an overreaction and we're treating him too harshly. I mean, I don't argue with Tottenham fans online. I don't have the time for that. And I just don't want to argue with Tottenham fans. But this, again, is a reflection of where the club is. The fact that this chap coming in and people saying, oh, he's only a scout, he's only going to earn a couple of $1,000 a year, a couple of £1,000 a year. It doesn't matter. If you are the person who delivers the groceries to Tottenham, right? And you are connected to Tottenham Hotspur and you are employed by Tottenham Hotspur, you should be told we are an enormous multi-conglomerate company worth billions and billions of pounds. You will not be posting anything negative about the people that employ you online. That's it. So the fact that that happened, again, it's not even so much about this young man. It's, again, I point my fingers at the people at Tottenham Hotspur and go, culture. What are you doing there?
The culture.
What are you doing? Who is the person that onboarded this guy? And what does onboarding at Tottenham Hotspur look like? And so if we're looking at this geezer and people are saying, he doesn't really matter, Teach, no, he doesn't. But the fact is that there are a lot of people who are employed by this company who receive no kind of instruction, no kind of education, no kind of enlightenment. I mean, this chap has made a foolish mistake and people have said, oh, he's held his hands up and apologized and all that kind of thing. It's not even about him. It's the fact that this company is so weak, man. They're so weak and they've got no idea. They've got no reason to be proud. And that's why we find ourselves where we are. So in answer to your question, Rick, the game tomorrow is the biggest game in the modern history of Tottenham Hotspur Football Club. And then the subsequent 9 games after that. So I put under my name tonight for people who are listening, you can't see it. It says fight of a lifetime. We are in the fight of a lifetime. And for me, like I said, this is the positive thing that I'll go on to talk about later. There is an opportunity there, but I will talk about that later. But make no mistake, we're in the fight of a lifetime.
Pat, lovely to be back on the show. God, what circumstances. And for listeners on audio, like Tudor said, what is in his caption? Pat's caption is, wake me up from this nightmare. Although I think Pat's been in that nightmare for about, the last 12, 18 months, for as long as I've known Pat. Pat, what a time to come back to the show. I mean, look, the last 24 hours have most certainly accelerated the concerns around relegation. I will make that point. For many months on Last Word on Spurs, we've shared our genuine concerns. But if it was only really in the last 2-3 weeks, the national media have really picked up on how bad things are. And we know how bad things are. We'll come on to that a bit later on, unfortunately, in terms of the preview of the Palace game. But Pat, your overall thoughts on where we are right now, as I mentioned at the top of the show, that we go into this game this evening for this. I've called it the biggest Premier League game in the club's history. End of for me. West Ham, Forest both go within a point of Tottenham, who sit 16th. A reminder: if Spurs do beat Palace, they will take the point. Well, 4 points clear of both, and leapfrog leads into 15th. Pat, can you remember a bigger Premier League game in our most recent history? I mentioned like when we were going for the title. Is it that level, Pat, now of just trying to stay in the league for you?
Yeah, I think this is, well, shout out first and foremost to the viewers and listeners. If you're watching this tonight, you know, what's going on. If you're listening in or watching this tomorrow afternoon or morning, yeah, shout out to you guys, man, because we're going to need to support each other, and we're going to need that camaraderie, like TJ said, because right now, I'm with you, Ricky. I think this is the biggest game in our Premier League history, and that's not hyperbolic. I think it is that we're literally fighting for our status and tag as a Premier League team. I think there's only 5 or 6 teams that have never been relegated from the Premier League, and we're one of them. You know, as much as Manchester City and Chelsea are huge clubs, they have spent time in the Championship. We haven't. I think it's ours, Everton, Arsenal, Liverpool, Manchester United, and I can't remember. I think there's one more. But, you know, and the fact now that we are, and at first it was a bit of banter, a bit of jokes, you know, Tottenham might get relegated and this and that. I still don't think we get relegated, I'll be honest. But that's maybe with my heart as a Spurs fan and not my head speaking. Because if you look at it, since when we lost to Chelsea on the 1st of November 2025, that was the weakest, worst performance I've ever seen in a London derby. We were actually absolutely awful. Thomas Frank set us up to try and nick a draw at home to Chelsea when they were there for the taking. Chelsea weren't even. Chelsea, I know they're a much better team than us, but they weren't good in that moment, and still to this moment they're not that great. And we didn't even try and actually impose ourselves on them at all, and we tried to play for a draw at home to Chelsea. It was incredible to watch. It was awful to watch. We lost 1-0, and I think that was the game where you saw Jed Spence and Mickey van der Ven not high-five Thomas Frank after the game. He should have went after that. We were then, you know, we were still in a decent position in the league right then. Our new manager could have come in and completely revolutionized and changed our season. They continued to stick with the guy. We lost 3-0 away to Forest on the 14th of December. Probably one of the most embarrassing games I've ever seen or watched as a Spurs fan. That was a horrible watch. We were absolutely awful from minute 1 to minute 90. And Nottingham Forest, who were a team, literally relegation fodder, dare I say we are the same as well right now. You know, a crap team absolutely played us off the park. He should have went then. That was the 14th of December. For whatever reason, they continue to stick with Thomas Frank. And now, as it stands, the 3rd, 4th of March, we are literally 1 point above them. Can you, like, you can't even fathom how bad it's got. There were so many times they could have pulled the plug. I don't know why they didn't. And now we are absolutely, it's sink or swim time. And when I look in that squad and I look at the players and I try and see who's really there to stand up and be counted, the only guys I can see that are really ready for this fight right now are Richarlison and Matisse Tell. Those are the only guys I see that have actually got the fight and the bottle to actually want the ball, to actually try and make a difference. Richarlison obviously came on and scored a goal. The reason why I'm saying he's actually got the fight and the ball, because he literally single-handedly kept Everton up a couple of years ago. So he's been there before with Watford and Everton, and he's been there, done that, wore the T-shirt. And when I talk about Matisse Tell, a guy who's consistently been let down by Spurs, really dodgy decisions, will play well, then not see the pitch for 4 or 5 games, didn't make the Champions League squad, obviously was put back in when Solanke got injured, then taken out. But this guy's never sulked or moaned. And every time he comes on the pitch, he wants the ball, he takes his man on and he does something positive. Those are the only 2 guys I can say right now that I actually enjoy watching or I actually believe can do something. Yes, we've got talented players, but none of these guys absolutely want to fight for the team right now. So it is worrying times. It really is. And, you know, since that loss on November the 1st, I think just quickly looking at the maths, we've won 2 games since then, lost 11, drawn 6. Those stats are absolutely diabolical. We are where we deserve to be. We're the worst team in the Premier League in 2026. And it's not even close. It's not even just on points. It's on every metric you can think of. Running, you know, blocks, goals for, goals conceded, XG for, XG against. Like, we're absolutely diabolical in every category. And this Tudor guy's come in. There's talks now if he doesn't get a win tomorrow, he's gone. And it just goes to show how badly set up we are, that we're even in this position. I mean, I didn't really understand what he was doing against who did we play on the weekend?
Fulham.
I didn't really get it. Some people tried to tell me that maybe he was trying to see, who's really got the bottle, playing players in the wrong position to see who's up for it. But I think when you got this many games left, you don't really take chances like that. You play players in the right position. Conor Gallagher on the right wing. What is it? I think he had
Javi Simmons on the other side.
on the other side. He had Solanke as a number 10. None of it made sense to me. None of it made any sense. And obviously we got beat. And so I just think now tomorrow, Crystal Palace aren't great at the moment. Obviously, we're absolutely awful. We're at home. If I, from minute one, usually you can see with the Spurs team what kind of game or performance we're going to get. I just need to see every single player running through brick walls. We need every single point we can get from now to the end of the season. And if we win tomorrow, it definitely takes the pressure off. You got 4 points clear, like you said, and there's a bit of daylight between us and other teams. But right now, the fact that West Ham and Forest are literally 1 point behind us and in better form and with better momentum, that's where it gets scary. So yeah, like it says in my caption, "Wake me up from this nightmare." It is absolutely a nightmare at the moment. You're seeing the teams that we hate winning games, looking good. We absolutely can't win for love or life. And I just think that when you look at the team, there's no direction, there's no cohesion. The manager doesn't know what he's doing. The players look like they don't want to be there. And obviously the fans are just torn. We don't know, it's hard. It's easy to say get behind the team and support them. But we need to see something to support.
They've got to give us that support.
Like when you go to the games,
two-way street.
I'm like a zombie in a stadium. It's so bad.
All I will say is that, Pat, on that point, is I do think, and I know our fan base, as much as we all know our fan base, the fans will be there for them. Like they were there for them against Arsenal. They will get behind the team. But at the same time, they've got to give us something to show us they understand the seriousness, the gravity of what the situation is, George. And I think that's a key thing, George, to ask you, because Pat mentioned it there. We're in this crazy scenario right now that Igor Tudor is walking into this game tonight, for listeners on audio, where he's under serious pressure already in his third game in. He was a manager brought in that was known for making an immediate impact in clubs, right? I think before he arrived at Tottenham, he won the first game in each of his last 5 football clubs. So he was known to come in and make a difference immediately. He's had the one similar thing to Tottenham where he was at Udinese, where he knows what it was like to battle relegation, and he kept them up. But we're at a point where to have got pumped like we did in the Arsenal game, and then for the Fulham game to have, number one, seen the massive concerns alone around the selection, George. I know you personally couldn't quite understand, like Pat alluded to, having Javi Simmons on one wing, Conor Gallagher on the other wing, Dominic Solanke as a number 10, already raising concerns before we even kick off. And then the nature of how we set up for the game, I don't think really... Look, I have to be clear on this. For me, the squad that we've assembled, and I don't say this in it might come across disrespectful way, it's probably the worst set of Tottenham players together I've seen in my time as a fan in the last 30 years plus. And there isn't, in my opinion at the moment, a superstar player that's going to lead us out, that's going to take the game by the scruff of the neck and keep us up. But I'm going to what Pat said a few minutes ago. You are really relying on the likes of a Richarlison that has been in a relegation battle with Everton over a couple of years and did show a degree of fight when he's there. And to be fair, did look like a player at Fulham that understands the serious nature of it. And Matisse Tell, who, to be fair to Matisse Tell, that whenever he comes on, does seem to bring something to a game. But then you ask yourself, well, why is he not starting games? Why are managers not seeing something in training to give him the opportunity? But then when he goes out on a match day, he gives us something. George, do you believe at the moment we're going to stay up? And how serious is this job for Igor Tudor going into the third game? Is he already, George, under massive pressure going into this third game for you?
At the moment, he's looking like a firefighter without water, to be honest with you. I think it's a tough one because we're in such a bad situation that I wouldn't have expected anyone to turn something around this quickly. And I know 3 games in the space of, 2 weeks? In the grand scheme of things, it's not a lot of time, especially with the situation we're in, with the sheer amount of injuries, just how badly we've been playing. But you're right, there's a lot of things that just haven't been making sense to me, like the some of the team selections, the consistent misprofiling of players, and this goes for a lot of managers. And I don't understand how these managers that make millions a year, if not hundreds of thousands a year, whatever it might be, all seem to not see what's right in front of them. And I think for me, when it comes down to this crunch time now, I much like the tactics almost go out the window when we're in this sort of dogfight at the bottom of the table, because it's all well and good trying to, fix the team with that have had poor tactics before, maybe play a bit too slow. But at the end of the day, you need players that are willing to fight for absolutely every second ball. For when things do get messy, you can try and take the game by the scruff of the neck and get a winner somehow. And I've got to give massive credit to Tell and Richie, to be fair, and even Sousa. I think when they came into that game, almost every action they did was a positive action. And that's something that we haven't seen from so many players. You've got Gallagher playing right mid, who, if he receives the ball, is only passing backwards because, let's be real, he's not a winger. He doesn't know how to take on a man. He's not a 1v1 specialist. Whereas you saw Tell leading up to that goal, had his back to goal, surrounded by 3 Fulham players, still turned the ball, drove forward, got into the box, laid it off, and the goal was created. And there was a second instance that was very similar. We didn't get a goal from it, but it just all seems to be positive actions. And we need more players like that on the pitch, players that are playing their natural positions. Sousa, a left-footed left back, and yes, I know he's young, I know he's a kid, he's just moved from another continent, but I believe this his Santos side were just fighting relegation when he was playing with Neymar just now. So at least it's something that he has been a part of, slash in a way is trying to prove himself and can do something going forward, where you just know that a Gray can't, or even Spence on the left simply just cannot put a cross on his left foot. So we just become too predictable, too easy to read, too easy to defend against. And I think that makes a big difference. And it seems like a lot of the younger players are the ones that have that about them. You look at the likes of Van de Ven, in my opinion, who I don't think has all been doom and gloom, because there was times in that Fulham game, you saw him charge up the pitch with the ball. He's still trying to slide in and win some tackles.
Is it fair to say, G, that you carry on there with Van de Ven? This is my opinion. I think what these last few games have showed us is that, look, his quality aside, because he's a quality player on his day, he's not a captain. He's not a leader yet. Is that fair, G, from what we've seen in the absence of Romero, who, to be fair with Romero, his actions have really cost us in these last 4 games as well. But is it fair to say that with Mickey, that we've just not seen that leadership that we would have needed at a time of where we are now? George, let you carry on there.
Yeah, a little bit. I think it's because, one, he's still so young, right? I think he's 23, 24 still. And there were moments throughout this season where I did think he was a good leader. But when it's come to the crunch time now and relegation has become a serious issue, I think the problem is with a lot of these players, because we're not used to being in this situation. The fact that we literally just won a Europa League last year, everyone thought would be kicking on from that moment onwards. I think the problem is a lot of these players just know that they can get a big move in the summer no matter what happens. So it's almost as if the relegation is inconsequential for someone like a Van de Ven, because he knows Liverpool will be sniffing. He knows Real Madrid will be sniffing for him. So I think as much as he's not necessarily just slumping around, I think you're right in terms of the attitude that he's showing as supposedly a captain and a leader isn't quite there, because I think really and truly in the back of his mind, he's thinking, oh God, we're in trouble here. But if we go down, so what? I can get a move. I think Xavi Simons is potentially another. And look, I like Xavi Simons. I think
you're right, George. That is my biggest concern. George, how you said there, that's something so important. I want you to finish on there, that point you mentioned there. Is that the biggest problem we've got? Is that as fans, we are going to be here no matter what. If this club drops into the Championship, we're still going to support them. It's been our life. It's our football club. We're not going anywhere. But do you think that's the biggest concern, G, that you see at the moment, that some of these players know, even if we go down, they're going to get out of here?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a different thing you've got to think about, because in my eyes, I don't see Van de Ven staying if we go down. I don't see Romero staying if we go down, because I think he's already voiced his displeasure at the board and being lied to, and however many Instagram posts he's made. So I can't see him wanting to say. I think someone like Xavi Simons has been able to get out of situations where he's not been happy, like at PSG, like at RB Leipzig, even PSV wanted to make the step up. I think he's been able to get out of situations, and he won't see himself as a championship player, so he'll want to go. The only ones in my eyes that I see see keeping around would be the younger players, the kids. Yeah. I think I know people, rumors about Liverpool looking at Bergvall and whatnot, but I think we are far more likely to keep the likes of a Gray, Bergvall, Odegaard, Tell, because I think they're just younger players that we probably could find a way of keeping. But then that's still worrying as to how do you build a squad then to get yourselves back up. And the fact that we're even having this conversation is mental in my eyes. But
The biggest concern for me about relegation is, and look, I don't want to steer away from the fact that it's still in our hands, right? So if Tottenham win our games, we will remain a Premier League club. I know the feeling right now, because of the fact we've not won a game in 2026 and we're at March, yes, of course there's a concern, right? You can't get away from the fact we are bottom of the form table. This is my worry around the fact that West Ham had shown momentum since playing us, where they were showing the ability to get wins. And look how we've transformed Somerville since he turned up at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. He looks like he could be a world beater. But Tottenham do that to you, don't they? I mean, we make every club look like they are Brazil. There's a lot we've got to come on to in this show. I'm just very conscious of the time. TJ, I need to ask you about Igor Tudor, because he's admitted in the embargoed section of his press conference that is now available for those that want to listen or watch that on our Last Word on Spurs channel, that this is probably the biggest challenge he's ever faced in his managerial career. And he's come to that conclusion, TJ, of only being here in the last 2.5, 3 weeks, which is really telling when, look, he has managed some massive football clubs. You know, the likes of Juventus, Lazio. These aren't small football teams. And he's been in perilous, difficult battles with the likes of Udinese in terms of keeping them up. You know, in the past, he said he doesn't really want to make comment about our injuries and his thoughts on that. And he wouldn't go into specifics around what he feels is wrong with the football club. He was quite scathing of the team after the Fulham game. And my concern is that when the group are already bereft of confidence, what they may need is someone, whether he's lying to them or not, to try and lift the mood, to try and tell them they're good players.
Yes.
And maybe not battering them when they're already on the floor.
No, sure.
And then when you're
listen,
hearing these suggestions, T, just let you come in on this point, you're hearing suggestions around the fact that if he loses game against Crystal Palace, waiting in the wings, they're already looking to change him. Just how serious do you think he's under fire if he doesn't win this game against Crystal Palace, given now the magnitude of this last 24 hours and the other results that have gone against Spurs in terms of the Premier League table and where they sit now?
Well, magnitude is the perfect word. The thing is that, yes, he's coached at these other big clubs. You know, obviously Juventus, a storied club through history. You know, Lazio to a degree. You know, certainly they had their time in the sun. I'm sure the Tottenham fans will remember when Gazza went there. But there's nothing like the Premier League. And again, this isn't bias or nationalism or patriotism or anything like that. Everybody knows the Premier League is the best football league in the world, the most competitive football league in the world. And the thing is that I was talking about this a little bit on the last show, is that all the teams are quite so competitive because, again, there's so much money in the Premier League. So clubs like, you know, whenever any football fans do this, I think the club that they always pick is Brighton, right? So, you know, clubs like Brighton or like Everton or like, you know, Fulham or any of them really, Bournemouth, they've got loads of money. You know, as soon as you come into the Premier League, you're flush. And if you go a few seasons in a row, like a Brentford in the Premier League, you know, you're gonna make loads of money, so you can attract proper talent from around the world, and you can pay them proper money. And the problem is for a club like Spurs, talking about, you know, recruitment and who we will retain and, you know, who we'll have to get rid of, and then, you know, we haven't even talked about who we could potentially bring in, is that your agent can say, well, listen, man, I can get you 80 grand a week to go and play at Bournemouth, and you'll play 20 games a season. I could probably get you, I mean, especially when Levy was there, maybe 45 to go to play at Tottenham. And like, yes, you'll be at London and their training facility is nicer, but you might get 10 games a season. And so Tottenham the whole appeal of Tottenham as a football club has completely been eroded. So with Tudor saying, I've never had a job harder than this, you're right, mate. Are any of us surprised to hear him say that? So I didn't know him. I was on the show when we just appointed him. And, you know, he posted a picture of him with all the boys in a restaurant. It was nice to see Tottenham players with a smile on their face. But of course, smiling at a restaurant is not the same as smiling on a football pitch.
Agree.
And so he has an enormous job to do, and he's never done it before. I'm not going to get into the intricacies of the appointment.
In terms of Premier League, he's never done it in terms of that experience.
No, he's never done it.
Yeah.
And also, you know, at Juve, you know, something happens at Juve, yes, you're going to get a lot of attention, but not internationally like you do in the Premier League. You just don't. I'm not disrespecting Juventus, one of the most storied clubs in the history of the game.
Yeah.
But it's different in the Premier League. Everybody's talking about this, right? Everybody's talking about the Premier League. And so I do think as well, he probably speaks 3 languages, right? He's got his native tongue, his Croatian language. He probably speaks Italian as well. And now he's speaking English as well. So I don't think we can hold him, completely verbatim. What he says is what he actually intends, or whether he feels in his heart or in his head. But, you know, he's admitting, I'm in real trouble here. I've never been under this level of scrutiny. And again, just a fact, if you do get relegated, the amount of money you lose is far greater than getting relegated in Italy or in Spain or in Germany, or it just is. And so my opinion of him, and kind of breathing some confidence into the players, I don't know him enough, Rick. You know, I can't talk to that with any honesty.
No, I don't get it. Well, listen, you know what I mean?
I would just say that for me, if it was me, that would be my central focus. I'm going to take it as read that they can all run, they can all pass, they can all shoot, they can all head, they can all do all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Fitness, I'm not sure about that. I would work on their fitness, and I would work on their confidence. So, there's this storied team in sport, which was the 1980 America hockey team, right? Which did the Miracle on Ice. They've made a million movies about this, right? These college kids in 1980 who has to face at the time, Soviet Union team, who were the greatest team in the world. They were all professionals. The 1980 team were amateurs. And, of course, they beat them, and then they went on and won the gold medal at the 1980 Winter Olympics. All the coach focused on was fitness and attitude. That was it. So keep it small. Again, if I'm going in there, and I've already talked before about how I know I can talk to people and motivate them. It's just kind of one of the things that I'm good at, and I know that I could do it genuinely because I have so much passion for the club, and I do know the history, is I would focus on making them feel happy about themselves, making them feel happy and proud about the team that they represent, make them feel a loyalty and a commitment to their fellow players, and then focus on their fitness. And that's it. Focus on that, and you can win yourself some games.
Pat, coming around to you just on Tudor, because I know we've got still quite a bit to go on this show. In his first press conference as Tottenham Hotspur manager, he says 100% confident that he would avoid relegation. I mean, 11, 12 days later, he gave that speech after the Fulham game where he said, "We lack when we attack. We are lacking the quality to score the goal. We are lacking in the middle to run. We are lacking behind to stay there and suffer and not concede the goal. This is an amazing situation." And I'm just showing this as an audio. The numbers here, that Tottenham are on a run, as everyone knows, 10 Premier games without a win. And there is that kind of real lack of a winning feeling around the club. It's almost like we forgot to know how to win. Because Spurs, in fact, we've not taken the lead in any league match, in the month of February. And the last time we led in the top flight was during a 7-minute spell at Burnley on January the 24th. So across Spurs' 10 matches since the turn of the year, we ranked bottom in the Premier League for both being dispossessed on the ball and overall losses of possession. And also since the turn of the year, only 35% of Spurs' possession sequences reached the final third of the pitch, and only the bottom 2 teams in Wolves and Burnley have a lower percentage. So Spurs essentially struggled to get the ball close to a goal, playing like a bottom 3 team in the process. Now, it's no wonder the job Tudor has of course, hand, and why he's saying this is the biggest challenge of his Premier League career, or managerial career for that matter as well. What's your gauge for you, Pat? Do you think, going to close it on this point on Tudor, Is it do or die for him in this game against Palace? Can you see if we don't get a result, make another change?
Yeah, I think so. I think it is do or die. And, I think if we're all being honest, Arsenal at home, even though they were in a rocky moment, they had just drawn a couple games, they were kind of like rocking. We know it's chalk and cheese between Spurs and Arsenal right now. They are legitimately the best club in the Premier League and one of the best clubs in Europe. I mean, they're first in the Premier League now with a decent points gap between them and City. They finished first in the Champions League group stages or a league phase stage, whatever you want to call it. Got to the semi-finals last year in the Champions League. Arsenal are a legit team. Like, there's no denying that. We hate to say it, but we have to, if we're being honest about it. They went into the game and obviously they smashed us, and we kind of knew that was almost like not a free hit because no games ever, but it was a free hit in the sense of we hoped we could get something out of it. But if we're being realistic, most of us didn't expect us to beat Arsenal. We just maybe hoped to first manager bounce. The fact that Tudor never lost any of his first games, all these kind of like things hopefully would fall in our favour. It didn't. And obviously it's men against boys, and cool. We lost that one. We move on. The Fulham game, he did some weird things. I didn't get it. Didn't play players in the right position, didn't react well to what had happened. We have to like chalk that one off as well. But this game now, there's no excuses. You've seen the team play in 2 games, home and away. You have to play players in the right position. You know the magnitude of the game. You know what's up for grabs. You know what's at stake. I can't see any excuses tomorrow. You have to win this game. And if he doesn't, then he probably will get sacked. And as crazy as it sounds, I can't really back the guy. Like TJ said, I didn't know much about him. I'm not going to sit here and lie. I'm not, I love the Premier League. I think I'm a Premier League connoisseur, but I can't sit here and say I know everything about every league and every manager. I don't. So when he came in, I was like, I heard it, read up on him, heard what everyone was saying. He's a fixer. He comes in and does a job and all of it. I was like, cool, okay. But so far, I've not really seen what I've, what the stats and what everyone's telling me about him. But that can change tomorrow if he wins a game. And then hopefully the momentum goes and carries and stays with us and we win a couple more games. And cool, Bob's your uncle. We stay up, shake his hand and we get a proper manager in the summer. But now it's do or die. He has to win tomorrow. There's no excuses. Palace, playing them at the right time. Yeah, they're a decent team on their day, but they're beatable. And now when you look at the
last
games,
team, Pat, we did beat was Palace, obviously.
I know, crazy, right? Even though George said it, we didn't deserve to win that game, but we did.
We were awful.
Fair
we
play.
were awful.
We got to take it as it comes right now, Ricky. Even if it's a scrappy, deflected goal in the 98th minute, and there's 10 minutes of injury time because they're wasting time, and whatever it takes, we need to win the game and move on. Hopefully, we can get a couple goals tomorrow for some good players. Solanke, Richarlison, get a couple goals, get some confidence, because confidence does weird things. And when a team doesn't look like they've ever played together. They keep passing the ball out of bounds. They don't look like they're running for each other and everything like that. The shirt looks heavy on them. That's what's kind of going on right now. You score a couple goals, play well, and then hopefully you can take that momentum and form into the next games. And I mean, look at Wolves. Wolves were a team that were dead and buried, and they're probably still going down. But the fact that they've drawn with Arsenal,
they are fighting.
They've beat Liverpool now. They're doing great things. They beat Aston Villa. It just goes to show, and they're not a good team, let's be honest, but just look what form and momentum can do for you. We need some of that.
Totally agree. George, I want to close off this segment with you because we've got quite a lot to discuss on this show. We know the gravity of the situation we're in. We've been discussing it for the last 45 minutes here. And, Pat touched upon Wolves there. Well, Wolves have won as many home games this week as Tottenham have won since April 2025. And the Premier League table in 2026, Tottenham have the fewest wins, 0 points, most conceded, worst goal difference, and are bottom on 4 points from 10 games. It's, disgraceful, disgusting for a club the size of Tottenham to sink this low. We know the damage has been massively done because of the lack of activity during January. And, I go back to that point I said a few minutes ago. We've not won since that Crystal Palace away game in December of last year. It is now March. But if you look at the overall bigger scale, 19 Premier League games, that's half a season over the last 5 months. George, the players and their confidence must be rock bottom. What has Tudor got to do? Is there anything he needs to say to them? Do the players understand, George, in your opinion, the serious nature of what we are in here in terms of a battle? because he was asked a couple of times, I think, forgive me, by Tom Barkley, covers Tottenham, around the fact of, has he got enough soldiers in that dressing room? And I just wonder, George, he said about the squad, they're looking at it, and Pat has said the likes of, and you said it as well, the likes of Tell. I think, again, we said it earlier, he has been fighting for the club whenever he's come on. Richarlison's the one that recognises and understands the relegation battle. But apart from that, George, is anyone ready to step up here and really lead us out through what is, no doubt about it, our difficult moment in terms of Premier League history, where this feels everything is riding on this Palace game. And whilst it's not a game that will relegate us if we lose, momentum feels really key for this one.
Yeah, I think, look, what should I say? I have no idea what he has to say to them. I think he needs to somehow get it into their heads that they can win games again. And how that happens, I cannot tell you, to be honest, because I'm not a football manager. I don't know what he needs to say. But like I said earlier, I think you start by playing the players that are at least showing something, showing a bit of fight, like your Tells, like Richarlison. I don't know, maybe a Gray to an extent, but we keep playing him out of position, and I just don't see it working, him playing fullback, centre back, wherever. Like a Sousa at left back. Like, I think players that are willing to show and prove themselves a bit more. I think a few players are currently on the beach a little bit in their feelings around the club and where they could potentially go in the summer if things go wrong. And I think all it takes is that, I think Pat said it, you just got to get that one win tomorrow, and that momentum can sort of shift and take you forward a bit. And look, not that I'm saying we're going to end up beating Liverpool or anything, but it then gives the players that little bit of boost of like, oh, okay, all right, we've won a game now. We've won a game at home. Let's do that again. Let's do that again in the next home game. We've still got Forest. You've still got Leeds to play. You've still got obviously Everton at the end of the season. Like there's still quote unquote winnable games there. I just think the players need that feeling of knowing that they can do it again. And that's been a struggle. It's been a struggle for the better part of what, 3, 4, maybe 4 or 5 months now. So how Tudor does that, I do not know. I think more likely than not, it's going to take some sort of fluke like the reverse fixture that Palace was, of getting a win from maybe one moment of brilliance from a player, whether that's Richarlison, Tell, whoever it is, I don't know. Yeah. I think it was Gray for the reverse fixture, wasn't it, that scored? If I'm not mistaken.
It was that. It was.
So whoever it comes from, in what circumstance it comes from, I don't know. I think we just need to get the 3 points over the line, and that's the most important thing for them, for those players to feel that boost. Because I think my worry is it can go the complete opposite way as well. If you lose against Palace, all of a sudden it's, oh God, here we go again. Oh, we've got to go Champions League midweek. Oh, we've got to go Anfield, which we just never win at. Like, it will then compound and get worse and worse and worse. Tudor might not even be here at that point, and then it's who do you turn to next? And I think tomorrow will prove, or today if you're listening, will prove to probably be one of the most, if not the most important game of our season now.
I agree. Tej, I know you were going to say something. Let's bring it in that section. Actually, you want to quickly say it, Tej? I know you maybe look on the other side of the coin as maybe being a real genuine maybe opportunity for players. It's an adverse period, right, to write themselves into Tottenham folklore by saving this club from relegation. Tej, I'll let you take it away on this point before we go for this first break.
Yeah, so just to add my 2 cents as well to what George was saying, players thinking about, what they could do if things go really bad. Obviously, we know things have already gone bad. They've been bad for ages, right? We all know that. And of course, we're referring to, if things go catastrophically wrong, if Tottenham Hotspur are no longer in the Premier League. So here's the thing. And again, like people who have seen me on this show before, who know me in my personal life, who've said all sorts of lovely things to me on the show and in person and on social media posts. I promise you, this isn't me just trying to spray sunshine onto what is a horrific situation. Again, I've pulled no punches with my indictment of the club and how it's run, but this is real for me, okay, in my opinion. So in times of adversity, these players now have an opportunity to truly write themselves into the history of this football club. And the point that I'm going to go on to make was actually perfectly encapsulated when Patrick was talking earlier about Richarlison. When Patrick was talking about Richarlison, it's probably about 20 minutes ago. Patrick was saying, well, Richarlison is always up for the fight and he's done it before. And then Patrick said he pretty much single-handedly kept Everton in the Premier League. And the point is that Patrick remembers that. I remember that. A lot of people remember that. So there is an opportunity for players at the club who want to accept this is where we are. However, I have agency. I can take responsibility. I'm somebody that can rely on myself, that can inspire others. And you can just get yourselves together, no matter who the manager is, no matter who your director of football, who your owners are, who they are. Just, it should be the captain, right? But whoever those people are at the football club, they might not be the captain. Just to stand together and go, we can save this. We can become players that in years from now, they will say, remember in the 2025-2026 season when Tottenham Hotspur nearly got relegated? And then Palhinha played those unbelievable games. Conor Gallagher played those unbelievable games. Richarlison played those unbelievable games. Whoever it may be, you can step up and you can take responsibility for this football club that has followers into the millions all over the world. It is a moment where you can really place yourself into the history books. And so again, this isn't me saying, oh, this is a terrible situation, but let's look at it positively. It genuinely is an opportunity for certain players in the club just to rally and to go, let's prevent this from happening and become part of the storied legacy of Tottenham Hotspur. And I believe that to be true. And people say, oh, TJ's an actor and all that kind of thing. I am an actor. I can't help what I do for a living. I just happen to be good at this. I'm not acting right now. This is real. You know, Patrick's not an actor, and he was talking about what Richarlison did for Everton. Yeah. I know that there are people at this football club who can do it and can save us and can become part of history. And once you're in history, you're in it forever. If I was there, I'd do it 100%.
But it's also damn indictment of where we are that we're having to rely on that as a situation.
Of course.
Terrible.
That you have to rely on yourselves.
Of course, 100%.
The buck can stop can stop with yourself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you can say to, if we're a team, I'll say, George and Patrick, Ricky, I promise you, man, I'll give everything for you and I won't let you down. I might make mistakes, but if I make a mistake, I'll correct it. I promise you. And believe me, that can get you far in life and on the football pitch.
Well, the reality as well, it's not too late at the moment. We're not in a situation where we're already down. We're not already down. So this is the situation. Look, we're going to go for our first break of the show for our listeners and audio. Thanks to the over nearly 10,500 that are with us in what feels like an emergency broadcast here. And yeah, it's tough going. It really is tough going. We're joined by the superb George Achillea, who's been with us for really since the start of the last 8 years or so. Look how well he's looking compared to me. He's aged well, isn't he? Patrick Tyrant's back. Pat, thank you so much. Pat's not been as lucky. He's I think Pat's come into a crisis the last ongoing 3-4 years. It will get easier, Pat. I've been telling that for about 3-4 years. At some point, it's got to come true. And we're joined by the superb TJ Ramini on this show. Guys, if you can, for us, like, hype, subscribe. That would be greatly, greatly appreciated. Look, I will just say this. I know there's a lot of, there's thousands and thousands of comments in there. We know that we're not, unfortunately, surrounded by all Tottenham fans in the comments. And I wish we'd be able to monitor that in more detail. I would say, guys, look, feel free to shut off from the comments and focus on the chat if we're entertaining you. If we're not entertaining you, feel free to focus on the chat, whatever makes you enjoy the show. Because I know the topics we might be discussing now aren't as enjoyable. And I'm not sure it's going to get any easier, to be honest with you. Some of the things we've got to come on to quickly, because I know there's a lot we've got to discuss and times against us. One of the things that have come out in this last 24 hours or so is that Tottenham are heading up a search for a new director of football. And wait for it, it's to work alongside Johan Langer, reportedly, and not replacing him. So Tottenham want to stick to this dual model of having two directors of football and would like the person to work alongside Johan Langer. If only it felt things are already as bad as they are, and how much Johan Lang feels he's got to take responsibility for the couple of windows that, to some degree, the last one in particular, he's had to have an element of control of because he Paratici stepped aside. And what we're hearing is Tottenham actually have engaged with an agency to help them look for candidates that can assist them in this dual sporting director model alongside Johan Lang. So, look, it remains to be seen how it will work out, but this executive search company are leading the process at this stage. Discussions with potential candidates can take place in the background before the club itself gets formally involved, but ultimately it's too early to say who will be on the list. But reportedly, some of the names that are in the frame that Spurs are looking at high up on the list include the Chelsea sporting director, Paul Winstanley. Now, it's important that I mention he's actually contracted to Chelsea until 2031, and he's not expected to quit the club anytime soon. And look, he's been there and has seen the likes or been involved in the signings of Cole Palmer, Moses Caicedo, Esteval, João Pedro. He's also helped the club hire a number of head coaches, including Enzo Maresca, Liam Rossinia. The other name that's also been mentioned directly is Dougie Freeman. Many will know Dougie Freeman for his time spent at Crystal Palace, where he worked under Steve Parish for over 8 years, and inside Palace's structure, built a very competitive team on a budget. Why does that feel that would suit Tottenham? He now works for Al Daria in Saudi Arabia, whom he only joined last year, but he's credited with the signings such as Eberechi Eze, Mark Gahey, Michael Elise, Adam Walton, and he was also heavily involved in the appointment of Oliver Glasner. Now, I know, Pat, to come around to you on this subject, there'll be many people that are already turned off by the fact that this role would be apparently to work alongside Johan Lang rather than replace Johan Langer directly. I mean, Pat, what's your feeling on this right now? Is it all irrelevant at this stage because it feels like Langer's, I think, contract does, come to an end come the summer, allegedly, and it could be a whole clean sweep anyway if a manager comes in and they want their own people. Where do you read this article, Pat, for you in terms of credibility?
Well, we just hope that it is they just obviously are being, I don't know why they're being respectful to Lange, because he's been absolutely rubbish. And like this last window, that just, considering we all knew the trajectory of the club, where we sat, we were winless. Frank probably wasn't going to stick around, and they didn't bring anyone decent in. I know Conor Gallagher came in, but he wasn't really what we needed to absolutely get us out of the trouble that we're in. And obviously Lange didn't. Yeah, it's been an awful appointment. So hopefully they're just being kind to him and they're not obviously trying to throw egg on his face, and it will be a sporting director that comes in that is obviously better than him and won't be working alongside him, because I don't understand this dual model, especially when none of them seem to be singing off the same hymn sheet anyway. Paratici and Landry are two completely different people. Both wanted different managers, different profiles of players. It just didn't work. And then obviously Paratici then left us for a club that isn't really doing anything, good anyway. It just doesn't make sense. I think the whole of Tottenham, the hierarchy, it all needs to get thrown in the bin and we start again. But the problem is, for that to happen, it's a massive thing, isn't it? And that's
they've got to want to sell the club. They've got to want to sell the club.
Exactly. You got to want to sell the club, put it at a decent or realistic valuation, and then also as well, just because someone buys it doesn't mean it's going to be somebody that's actually going to pump money into the club. I don't want none of this consortium rubbish. I want Saudi owners or a rich playboy that is going to be happy to put his name on the tin and push us to where we need to be pushed. But obviously that's another story for another day. But in regards to the director and I mean, I don't know. Freeman sounds like he sounds like a very good director. I know obviously he's worked on the budget, but he's got a good track record. Lange didn't have a good track record. Didn't have one here at Villa. I didn't really understand it. And he's not done anything for himself here anyway. So I just don't get why he's still in a job. At least the other guys that you're talking about, I know the Chelsea one. I don't see why we're going after the Chelsea director. There's no way they're going to allow him to come to us. And I don't think he would want to either. It doesn't make any sense. But the Freeman one makes a lot of sense. And I do like what he's done. I mean, the players that he's recruited, the manager that, everything sounds good. Obviously, it's almost like the Thomas Frank scenario where, you're looking at someone that's done well at a smaller club, with all due respect. If he's comes to Tottenham, will he be able to cope? Maybe he can step into the project with bigger funding and better backing. He grows into the role. It could also go the other way, like Thomas Frank, and he ends up just not being able to swim and essentially sinks. But Yeah, I don't know. I think right now, I think it's the least of our worries as well, Ricky, if I'm being honest. I think we just need to focus on the matter in hand, which is
Yeah.
to just win as many games as possible and see where that, that leads us. Um, yeah, I mean, when you're relying on other teams to lose games and then not doing that, that's when you know you're in big trouble. So I think for us, we just need to win as many games and we'll deal with that bridge when we cross it.
Yeah. George, I don't want to waste too many people's time on this article because I know we've got more pressing matters at hand, but I will just tell people we completely tried to rip up the whole running order when we saw those results coming through in this last 24 hours. But obviously we're covering it because we haven't covered it on Last Word on Spurs. And I think when it's ever a situation like this around structure at the top and there being potential changes, it feels right to mention it. Is there anything, George, you want to add to what Pat said about this potential model? And I mean, I know what people have kind of grabbed on the fact is that the fact we're having to employ a head hunting agency who specialise in placing candidates in sport executive roles. TJ just looking at me like blank mind. And George, what's your thoughts on this?
To be honest, that was the main.
If you've got any, that is.
Yeah, no, that was the main thing I was going to mention. I think that shows what an absolute shambles of a situation the club is in when you've got supposedly your CEO Vinay doesn't have a clue who to bring in, because I mean he was gutless in the first place to not make the decision on Johan Lange and Paratici. I think we clearly must have offered Paratici the role months and months and months and months prior to his appointment because he was still working as a consultant for us. And when he came in, when Vinay came in the summer, that was, he didn't have the bollocks to get rid of Levy's man in Johan Lange and decided to create this random dual role of two, like Pat said, just two completely different people. And now the problem is you see the ownership clearly don't trust Vinay's ability to make appointments right, because both him and Lange wanted to keep Frank on as long as possible. And now look what's happened. It's been an absolute disaster. So I think I'm hoping it's just, no. It's a dual role. It's a dual role. Don't worry about it. And then the moment the sporting director comes in, they just bin Johan Lange off, because I just don't see any world in any circumstances where having him alongside someone else works, because he's categorically failed at Villa, got demoted to be the youth appointment. They had supposedly had parties when he got sacked and left, came to Spurs and effectively got demoted again to young signings when Paratici was getting more and more involved towards the end of last year, to then having to be reappointed as director of football again because Paratici said, you know what, F this, I'm going back to Italy. So to keep him on, I think would be an absolute categoric disaster, especially, and let's be real, what sporting director worth their weight in salt, or whatever the phrase is going to want to come to any club and share the job with someone else? Do you know what I mean? I think they're going to want to do it themselves. They're going to have their vision, their plan. And I just think it just shows what a categorical mess it is that we're now having to look for outside help to hire a director of football who probably is going to end up being the one that sets the tone and the ideologies of the club.
Agree. Look, we are going to go for our final break of this show. For our listeners that are on audio, it's been a crazy, crazy show that was planned to go in one way. And in typical Tottenham fashion, they rip up the script even when they're not playing. How do they get us angry when we're not even playing? Only this football club. Thank you to the over 12,500 that are listening and watching Last Word on Spurs. If you can for us out there, guys, like, hype, subscribe to the show. That would be greatly appreciated. TJ, I want to come to you on this story because you touched upon it earlier. But I just want to give a bit of background and context to this, what's happened in the last 48 hours or so, because it's understood Tottenham Hotspur have been left deeply unimpressed with their, at the moment, new Arsenal supporting academy scout after he joked about not wanting his new badge to touch his skin. Now, the club have declined to comment today in terms of this situation. And just to be very, very clear, this is a guy I think goes by the name of Coachman on Instagram, who states he's a UEFA B license and posted a picture of himself in a Tottenham tracksuit next to the club motto, "To dare is to do," and says he was looking forward to getting the new set of superstars to the club. He added, "You know the project's good when you're a boyhood Arsenal fan and you switch sides," to which, under the Instagram post, one poster responded, Do not let that badge touch your skin," to which Coachman wrote, "I've already got the base layer." Another one posted, "We need someone on the inside," to which Coachman responded, "Shush." A picture of a snake was then posted, with Coachman replying, I know, it's deserved, haha." Tej, your overall thoughts in terms of this story, and again, I suppose it comes back to the due diligence, the background checks that have been done by the club, and I suppose also the reputational damage that this is doing right now, given the plight where we find ourselves in league-wise, stature-wise. I mean, just, Tej, any more thoughts on this for you and how this has seemed to really scale out of control?
Not really. I mean, I've already talked about this, and to be honest, I think that in the last section, when we're talking about people like Johan Langer and Vinay, just how is Langer in any job? Like, how are you still working in football, mate? And obviously all of these jobs are enormously well paid. And so again, it just speaks of, I mean, it is beyond a joke now. It really is. And this latest incident, if anyone was perhaps on the fence or wasn't really sure in their convictions, with believing that the people running this football club could not be more disconnected from it, this is the final nail that you would need. Now, again, this young man is entitled to follow and support any football team that he wants. But again, you are being hired in a professional capacity. So you cannot go and publicly insult your employer on a social media platform. So for me, he's just a foolish young man. He will probably get sacked. And to be honest, I feel quite sorry for him, genuinely. I don't know anything about him, but I just think he's a young man who's made a catastrophic mistake, and it's now kind of landed him on a global platform, and he will end up losing his job. So maybe a lesson to be learned for him there. But for the football club, we just don't understand what it is, who it is that's working for us, who it is that's bringing anyone into the football club, because you just don't care about us. I said on the last show quite unequivocally, I cannot stand the people who are running the football club right now. None of us can. None of us can. And so if you want to change the perception of how we feel about you and what we feel about this club, then prove to us all this rhetoric and all these staged PR campaigns. They're so nauseating. We want to see honesty and a connection to the club and respect to the club's fans, because we pay for all this stuff. We are the lifeblood of the club. And so I don't think we need to talk too much about this guy, but then other to say, here's another damning indictment of how poorly this football club is run at every single level.
George, I'll ask you very quickly, did it surprise you, or are you just not surprised anymore by Tottenham and just what happens around the club? Because, in this story, there is a degree of accountability for the individual in terms of what he does on his own profile, but for it to come out at the moment, like TJ says, already at a point where it just feels like the club is on fire to some degree in terms of what is happening on the pitch, and you look at it off it, and then you have this to add into that melting pot. I mean, you just think, how is this all happening at one time? And again, it goes back to, like, we can say about the negligence of the board, and just unbelievable, isn't it, George? I mean, another story like this.
Look, I think it's just complete naivety and stupidity from him. I'm not one that is like celebrating people losing their job over stuff like this, but the problem is, I think it comes from the top down, like you say. It's about the culture that you create, and I think it is just dumb. Like, why you're an Arsenal fan, that it's going to get a reaction somewhere, especially with a couple thousand followers. Like, you just think that's not going to be seen, especially with it not being a private account. I think it's just stupidity, to be honest, especially with the situation that we're in. But equally, I do think some people, I think it's more because everything's compounded onto what's happened with Spurs, is that it's come across as worse. I think the other issue is when people need to realize that football being as big as it is, and with top clubs wanting the best of the best, you're not going to have a whole host of 300 Spurs fans working at Spurs. There's going to be Man United fans. There's going to be Liverpool fans. There's going to be Arsenal fans. The same way that's going to be the same case for every other club, because the facts are the facts. They are the 3 biggest clubs in the league in terms of following.
Yep.
So naturally, some of the best coaches, best scouts, best whatever are going to support those clubs. We've had players that have supported those clubs. I think at the end of the day, it's down to that individual to not be an idiot and be more professional in their job, because saying stuff like, I'm already got my skins on to not let the badge touch me. Come on, that's just idiotic. But I think people also need to realize that it's completely unrealistic to expect every single person that works at Spurs to actually be a Spurs fan as well.
Yeah.
I think there's a bit of both that we need to take into account.
Agreed.
So to see him lose his job, I think it's a shame on him. But at the end of the day, he kind of put it onto himself by being, in my opinion, extremely naive. And again, like I said, it all comes down from the culture that you set to not allow this sort of thing to happen. Like, surely that comes across in interviews and this, that, and the other, that your allegiance in private life doesn't come across with your work.
Fair points. Pat, I want to come to you, and we're going to try and move that on because, again, there's just such a free-flowing show. We're going to close on Palace in just a second in terms of team who's going into it, nature of the game itself. We touched on it in the first place. But just one thing I want to cover off with you, Pat. There's actually a couple of things. The Premier League themselves, I mean, they've been brought into question in this last 24, 48 hours. I mean, again, it is, do you know what? We've only been away for 72 hours, and this club, right, honestly, I'm terrified. I've got a wedding in Cyprus for 2 weeks that I'm going to be away for. What could happen in 2 weeks when I'm away for 2 weeks and someone's got to cover this? God help the person's going to be covering me for 2 weeks. They're going to come to think, what have I walked into? It is the biggest challenge I'm facing in my life doing this podcast. Try and come and do this job. Honestly, it's mental. Let's cover the Premier League on a couple of points, Pat. Number one, I say we've only been away 72 hours, but the Premier League posted a video of Vicario from a goal kick, kicking the ball out of play. Right, this is the Premier League that are meant to be the most unbiased organisation that should not be coming for the football club. And then on top of that, we've got Spurs writing now formally to the PGMOL over concerns of the standard of refereeing in their recent matches. It just feels, Pat, that whether it's the Premier League, whether it's the Professional Game Match Officials Limited of their title, it does feel, Pat, like everyone has got it in for us right now. Is that fair? I mean, what did you make of that, Pat, when you maybe woke up and saw that video doing the rounds before someone from Tottenham got in touch and said, what the hell are you playing at? What is going on, Pat?
You know what? It's like if you don't laugh, you'll cry. And I think, with all due respect, I feel that we are a soft touch. We're a big club. We have a massive following. And we, as in, not we as in the fans, but the club have made it easy for us to be bantered. The performances this year have been atrocious. The performances over the last 48 months have been horrendous. I know we won a trophy, but we were still bad under Ange as well, hence him getting sacked, finishing 17th, losing 22 games, blah, 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 blah. You lot all know the stats and the facts. And I feel that, Vicario... Yeah, I don't want to dig out a player, but he's rubbish. He's not a good goalkeeper. Let's be honest. People say, "Oh, he's a good shot stopper. He's a good." I mean, he's a goalkeeper. He should be saving shots. But when you look at his overall game, the amount of times he's been beaten, like Iwobi should not be scoring from that far out. He saw it all the way, and he got beaten at his near post. That is poor goalkeeping. The way his kicking, his clearances, everything else is poor goalkeeping. How shaky he is on corners and crosses. And that's, again, something we've been bantered on. How bad he is on his crosses and commanding his area. And, yeah, the Premier League shouldn't have done it. That is really poor. But they know that we're an easy target. It will get a lot of clicks, a lot of, reactions and bites and traction. And it's easy to do it. If they did it with, like, for a Wolves goalkeeper, or maybe a Palace goal, no one would really care that much. We're easy to be bantered because we are a big club, we have a massive fan base, and we get a lot of media attention. We're still one of the clubs that has literally shown every game of ours is televised.
We're getting more media attention ever now.
Yeah, exactly. So, and all they're talking about now is, are Tottenham going to get relegated? It's an easy click, and and he did it, and obviously they took it down. There's like, what, maybe we're an easy target right now. And obviously you spoke about the fan who the scout who obviously is an Arsenal fan and him doing that. I think it's a bit harsh him losing his job. I'm not going to lie. And I hear what George is saying, and I agree with that. Like, realistically, if you're a big club, you're going to have employees that do not support the club. It's normal. But obviously, he should have shown a bit of respect and decorum. And to do that publicly is a bit silly. It's naive. If it's in your WhatsApp group chat, cool. You know, but to do it publicly where everyone can see it, I think that's where he crossed the line. But I think it's harsh. You know, no one wants to wish ill on anybody, especially in the economic climate. So for him to lose his job, that's a bit harsh. But I can't really. I feel as well, just like George said. I think if we were doing well, if we were fifth or sixth or second or third in the Premier League, even 12th, no one would even care. I don't even think it would be a story. It wouldn't have made the Daily Mail. But again, they're kicking the dog while it's down. They're kicking someone when they know it's again easy clicks. It's going to get a reaction, and obviously it's done that. So yeah, I just feel that we as a team need to show some backbone and some fight. Finally, we've written to the PGMOL and asked them what's going on. Why are we getting these decisions go against us and every other club doesn't? And you turn a blind eye when it's, you know, a referee will come out and say, "Oh, it's two hands in the back, it's a definite foul." Blah 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 blah. We saw Ekatike push Romero, or it was Van Dijk, I think, that pushed him. Whoever, and they scored. Goal given. You know, the Gabriel push was so soft, and they still gave the goal, and the referee was so adamant that it was, you know, it was a foul. And then, I mean, the Bentancur one where he's actually getting pushed to the floor, and they're saying, "Oh, he's got his arms around the player for Newcastle, not looking at the ball, penalty." We see that in every game now. I mean, look at the Chelsea versus Arsenal game. They were doing it the whole, and no one turns a blind eye. So I just don't understand where the consistency, and it's literally 1 week after the next. But again, it's other managers for Tottenham haven't come out and said anything. It's only finally now we're addressing it. It's too late in the season now to be addressing it. Should have been addressed back then when these things were happening. And again, that's Tottenham just not having the balls to actually stand up for themselves. And I just feel until the club actually has a backbone, these things will continue to happen. But I do believe from top to bottom, we need an absolute cleanse, and we need to set some standards. And like TJ said,
Right.
when as soon as you come through that door, you're giving a speech, you're showing things on the wall of the club's history, and this is how you should act, this is how you shouldn't act. Even in big clubs like a Google or a Pepsi or Coca-Cola,
Look,
they
Pat, you
know
know
how
what,
to act. And
all the things you're saying, Pat, should be kind of standard. It's
I
it's
know, I
mad.
know.
It's mad. You're having to spell out what
What is pretty
should be the
standard? Yeah, I mean,
what should be the norm.
you know, like the secret recipe of Coca-Cola. Do you think that there's thousands, hundreds of staffs that know that recipe that would never ever see the light of day because they know if they ever did that, they couldn't break those codes and those regulations because they know how the consequences will be
Yep.
horrible for them. It doesn't seem that the guys that work for Spurs have the pride and again, you know, this guy's done that and it's slap on the wrist, and it's just I just don't see, there's no pride in the club, and that's from top to bottom, and that's where it's now being shown. And there's no, again, like we finished 17th last year, and that should have been major alarm bells to really go all out in the summer and get the top players in. And again, this winter
January transfer
window
window.
that
Yeah,
just
just
went, there was no real emphasis to go and strengthen the team.
agreed.
And look where we are now. So
Yep.
yeah, it's a shame, but it's not. Us fans have seen this coming a long time, and
Yep.
you know, we're told we're moaning, we're this, we're that. Now look, it's pretty much, yeah, where we all hopefully hoped it wouldn't be, but it is where we all thought it could be.
Yeah, well, let's merge quickly into just the nature of Palace to come. Of course, today, for listeners that are on audio, TJ, I'll start with you, and we're going to end on George if we can. Look, we're at risk of setting a new record for our longest ever Premier League winless run as we host our third straight London derby. Now, Palace themselves, they have slumped to 14th in the league. They're just 6 points behind Spurs after giving up a 1-0 lead to lose to Man United last time out. You know, we're reeling ourselves from 4 straight league losses. We're on our worst run of form going back, as I said, many, many years. We don't want to break any even more records. And whilst Tudor says it's not a must-win game, he's recognised the importance of all the games to come. Tej, I think it's fair to say, I think as fans, we know it's a must-win game. What would
Yeah.
your message be to fans that are on their way tonight to the game, listening on audio to this show, just the nature and how important this will be? You said it earlier, in the history of Tottenham, how big this game is for us in the Premier League. Massive.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't think any of the Tottenham fans need us to sit here and draw their attention to the magnitude of this challenge that we have ahead. I understand what Tudor is saying, that, 3 points against Palace is the same as 3 points against Everton, Liverpool. 3 points is 3 points, right? However, we all know as well that momentum, rhythm, confidence, all of these things, all these slightly, like I said, nebulous, mercurial aspects of life, let alone football, have very tangible results. And so the feelings surrounding winning are so bereft at Tottenham Hotspur right now. I think we're 1 in 14 at home.
Yeah.
And so it's almost a foreign feeling to us. And again, so many of us, the club, us, so many of the players at the club are so young. And so these are fragile individuals. A lot of young people are fearless. Like Bergvall feels quite fearless for me. I think Tell has shown tremendous fortitude in the limited opportunities that he has been given. But he seems like a young man whose back when his back is against the wall, he says, well, I will stand up and be counted. And like I said to you earlier, that has tremendous resonance with me. And so it has to start somewhere. So to be given an opportunity to play at home in front of your fans, and no matter what you put us through, we stick by you. We stick by you. The Tottenham Hotspur faithful are something that we should all be proud of. I certainly am. And so to have an opportunity at home to play another London team that are struggling, another London team that are desperate for results, and to show at least some signs of this is how we plan to implement getting ourselves out of this quagmire that we find ourselves in. So to the Tottenham fans that will be attending, like I said, I won't even be able to watch the game. I'll be at work. I'm with you. We're all with you. And to Igor and to the team, we're with you guys. We're with you. We want the very best for you. It is up to you now to make a point, to take a stand, to look to the man to your right and the man to your left and say, I won't let you down today. At the 90-minute whistle, however many minutes you play, you collapse because you give it your all. So that's all I hope to see. And to the viewers and the listeners of this pod, thank you for joining us. I know it's a tough time. We do appreciate you. Thank you ever so much. Ricky, to you, mate. I got a lot of love for you, bro.
Oh,
Patrick, lovely to see you, mate. George, always a pleasure. Thank you, everybody.
You've been a diamond. Pat, let's come to you. Then we're going to close with G if we can. Pat, we discussed at the start of it, just the nature and the style of just how big this game has become in this last 24 hours or so. Tudor, he says we need to have belief that we don't have quality to go out on the pitch and perform. My point is to give both things to the players. This is how my job works in this sport. I'm trying to touch the players in all kinds of ways. I've seen a willingness to change. We need to change. And I have seen small progress. And he believes that there has been, day by day, the players wanting this more and making him feel positive enough to believe that we will do it and we will survive. Do you share the optimism of Igor right now, Pat? You might feel different going into that stadium at 7:45.
Yeah, I mean, I want to believe it because I have to believe it. If I don't, then we're already at a minus. And I think it's been so tough for us Spurs fans, like, the ones that watch from afar, ones that watch in this country, ones that go to the game. There hasn't been anything for us to get behind, but I'm just getting behind the fact that we're Spurs fans. We love the club. And sooner or later, hopefully the penny drops and we start to see a performance. I haven't seen anything that gives me the confidence. Even in the losses, you can hopefully see something. I've not seen that. I can't lie to you. But, I mean, obviously, we've seen, Sousa look quite, like George touched on, and I forgot about Sousa, to be fair, but Sousa has looked good every time he's played. He is so young. There's a small sample size, so you don't want to get carried away. But to be fair to him, he looks like a decent left-footed or left-sided player that actually plays to his strengths and can go both ways. And yeah, he looks good so far. And obviously tell, you know, your Richarlisons. Solanke to a degree has looked quite good. Moani in spells, but I don't really see enough of Moani. But yeah, anyway, so we're just hoping and praying that these guys turn up. I haven't seen it, but you just hope that the penny drops and it clicks, and then like TJ says, you get a bit of momentum and it takes you to the next game, and it, because sooner or later it has to. If it doesn't, then we are absolutely doomed. Like, it's no doubt about it. We're, you know, West Ham and Forest are 1 point behind us now. Obviously only 3 teams can go down. 2 are pretty much nailed on, so there's 3 teams fighting, you know, to avoid that last space. If we win a couple games and they win a couple games, maybe Leeds can get dragged into it. Who knows? But as it stands right now, it is really a toss-up between us, Forest and West Ham. And that sounds mental, but we've just got to be honest in the situation we're in. We win a couple games, there might be some daylight, and we sit back and then we laugh about this later on. But as it stands right now, because we haven't won in so long, we have to just be honest, and this is where we're at. So I haven't seen anything, but I'm just hoping and praying that it changes, because that's all you can have, isn't it? If you don't have that, then what's the point?
Agree. Pat, you've been a diamond. It's been lovely to have you back. I feel I have to always apologise to you.
Tough, man. I mean, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. It's just crazy that we are in this situation, and it just always seems to get worse. Like, we were laughing and joking about being 17th, but at least then we didn't have this trouble. We knew we were home and dry.
Yeah.
Now we are literally round about that place, but it is real now. So it's crazy, isn't it? But yeah,
I just can't get over the fact. I know George was also, I think George might have, forgive me, George, I know you was in Bilbao, but I remember on the day of the parade, I was kissing and hugging TJ and Pat next to me. And never did I think in the 6 months later we'd be sitting here talking about us being relegated.
Never.
In a relegation battle. Because I don't want to say the word relegated, because we're not there yet.
Yeah, we're not. We can't talk it into existence. But we are definitely in a relegation battle. And I scoffed at that. You know, and I told people, don't be silly. But we are legitimately now. There's no doubt about it that we are.
I mean, you've all been on this show for the course of the season. I know, Pat, you've been dipping in and out, bless you, at times again because of commitments. But, I mean, George, you've been here a lot this season. Now, we were saying this very early on with Frank, that we could see, unfortunately, this trajectory where this has been happening and coming, and it didn't feel like anyone really was taking this seriously enough. And I think now the ballroom at Tottenham, or those senior people, are probably looking now, probably as scared as we are, thinking, I don't know if they're as scared as us, because, again, I might be doing them too much of a nice service there by saying they're as scared as us. But as fans, I am petrified. I'm terrified if this club drop into the Championship. I don't understand any Tottenham fan. Just my opinion. I don't need to no disrespect to anybody out there. I can't understand any Tottenham fan, any Spurs fan, that feels relegation is a good thing for this club. ENIC are not going to sell this football club in the Championship. They're just not. They're not going to take a quarter of its value with us sitting in the Championship. And what you also got to remind yourself is that every team that plays Tottenham, if we drop into the Championship, it's going to be their cup final. So if you remember when we were playing at Wembley those few years ago under Pochettino, and to be fair, at Wembley, we had some difficult times there, but overall as a whole, when we were under Pochettino, we got results at Wembley. There was a great togetherness. There really, really was. But the Championship, I don't want to think about it, but it's going to be like nothing other than the fact that every team are going to raise their game. And look, I'm not terrified of losing a Van der Ven or a Romero or even a Xavi Simons, for all due respect, because there'll be players that will feel and bleed the heart of this club, that will want to perform for us, even if it's our academy, and do their best on the football pitch. But for anybody out there that is suggesting relegation is a good thing, I can't understand that. I'm absolutely baffled, and it confuses the hell out of me. But that's just my opinion. That's not me picking it.
I understand. Maybe they're like, we need a cleanse and we just want to get rid of all that.
These owners are not going to sell with Tottenham in the Championship. When we say a cleanse, it's only going to get worse. Look at our level of recruitment in the Premier League. Imagine in the Championship. Who are we going to attract in the Championship?
I know, it's so bad. But I do get where some people are coming from. I don't understand. Well, no, I say you get. I don't get it, but I get their train of thought to a degree, but it's mental. And
I think they see it as like, this is what the ownership deserve, but at the end of the day, it's just going to hurt us more than it will hurt them.
Let me listen. We've said this a lot on the show. Let me be very, very, very clear. Right, this board, this ownership deserve relegation for how they've neglected and treated the football club. There's no doubt about that. The Ball deserve relegation. In my opinion, our fans don't. We don't deserve relegation. We don't. Everybody pays their money to go and watch the team. You know, me personally, I've been at every one of the Change for Spurs protests, but I appreciate protests aren't for everybody. And everybody has got a limit in terms of how they feel and what they feel. And I just think it's incredibly sad that people are being judged on being a fan over whether they've attended a certain thing or not attended a certain thing. But at the end of the day, I just can't get on board with any Tottenham fan that really, truly thinks relegation is a good thing for Tottenham. I just think it's insanity. George, I want to close you if I can. Palace, massive, massive game. I think I'll go along saying it again. It's probably the biggest game in our Premier League history since we were fighting for the title. And that's again a damning indictment of how far we've fallen. Thoughts on the game, George, and how you see it panning out?
Yeah, look, it's like I said before, it's do or die now. Like this is the sort of games we have to win. I think the away games we have for the rest of the season are as almost as tough as it comes. With, you know, you like Liverpool, Chelsea, Sunderland this season at their ground have been quite a bit of a force, more so at the start of the season. So yeah, it's we have to start winning these games. I know home has been an absolute disaster for us, but we just simply have to. There's no excuse now. And to what the guys were saying before as well, like I completely echo it. I think we need the players, for me personally, to just absolutely show something on the pitch that they're willing to fight for this, because I think positivity breeds positivity as much as anxiety also breeds anxiety. I think if the players are playing nervously, that feeds onto the fans. And yet we've seen in like that Man City game, especially when Solanke was starting up front and he came back and he looked electric, scored a great goal. I think when we saw just an ounce of positive football, you saw how quickly that crowd changed in that second half versus the first half. I've got to give massive credit to the fans of the away end for Fulham, because I thought, given how the game was going, I thought that they were as loud as anything. And I've heard a lot of people say it came through the TV as well. But unfortunately, the longer it goes on, the more nervous people get, the more anxious people get, and they'll start leaving. And I think what I really want to see is our players just absolutely go for every single ball, because I think if we see that, the home crowd will back what they're seeing. And that should hopefully have a little bit of a snowball effect as to how the game goes. Because look, when you can, like at Fulham, when you concede an early goal like that, if that were to happen again tomorrow, I can just imagine the 60,000 fans or whatever. You'll feel the nervousness sort of reap around the stadium. So I really just want us to start on a positive foot, have something that the fans can see and get behind. And then that should hopefully snowball into a positive result. Whether that happens or not, who knows? We'll find out. But yeah, I think we really need to start seeing something positive so that we can all start just having a bit better energy in these home matches. I think it's gotten toxic, but for a good reason. The football was terrible.
I think the Arsenal games, I was there for the Arsenal game. The fans were right behind the team for the Arsenal game, weren't they? They were right behind the team. They were
100%. And I think we obviously need that. We need that from every fan. But at the end of the day, it's understandable why people are moaning at games, because sometimes what we've seen at the home this season has been absolutely terrible.
100%
sometimes it's difficult to back the team when you're just seeing absolute dross in front of you. So no, I just want to see the players just fully recognize the situation that we're in and just go for everybody, get something that we can get behind, and hopefully show some fight for the rest of for the end of the season, because like Lord knows we definitely need it.
Yeah, I agree. George, Pat, TJ, guys, thank you ever so much for what's been a really difficult show to have to do under what's been crazy circumstances in the last 24 hours, how results have seemingly gone against us. But the most key thing about it is in Tottenham's hands. And if Tottenham do use that word perform or find a way, then we will stay in the Premier League. But it's a damn indictment of where we are that I'm having to say those words on this podcast. I thought I never would say. Guys, thank you so much. To the watching audience of over 15,500, thank you so much for all your comments that have come through during the game. Look, we know it's a difficult time right now, and I know there's a lot of frustration, anger that we are even in the position that we are in. But my final message on this show is for those that are in the stadium, get behind the team, get behind the players, get behind the manager, because this team needs supporting, and we're going to do that together in that stadium. So best of luck to everybody in attendance. Let's hope we get a win. Let's hope we don't have to even have shows like this in the future where we are having to discuss where this club might be going. But from these wonderful people, George, TJ, Patrick, the audience, thank you so much. We've been the last one on Spurs. Please, as always, keep safe, keep well. And as always, come on, you Spurs. Please.